California's mountains have seen an epic amount of snow this year. A historic series of storms in December and January built up the state's snowpack so much that it kicked off February at nearly twice its usual amount. Then the weather turned cold and dry, until this week, that is. The winter storms that brought snow to the Bay Area on Thursday and Friday have added even more to this year's colossal Sierra snowpack. The UC Berkeley Central Sierra Snow Lab, a research station located on Donner Summit, has recorded 120% of the average snowfall for an entire winter season and 176% of the typical snowfall to date for this time of year, according to a tweet from the lab. The lab has measured a whopping 432 inches, 36 feet, of snow this water year, compared to 360 inches normally, the tweet said. The water year runs from the beginning of October through the end of September annually. Andrew Schwartz, lead scientist of the Central Sierra Snow Lab, said this week's storms added 4 to 6 feet to the snowpack, which is not necessarily uncommon in the Sierra. The lab is above 7,000 feet in elevation, and it can see several storms a year that bring 3 feet of snowfall per day. Next week's predicted storms could build the snowpack to 40 or even 45 feet, tweeted the lab. Across the state, measurements on February 24th placed the average snow water equivalent, how much water the California-wide snowpack contains, at 37.6 inches, or 144% of the April 1st average. That's up from 140% reported on Monday, February 20th, before this week's storms. Schwartz said that the lab's numbers so far this year are really good news. The snowpack generally peaks around late March or early April and determines how much water will be available for use in the coming year. We're already well above that late March or April 1st measurement, which means that, in terms of snowpack at least, we can look at helping resolve the drought a little bit, Schwartz said. However, the state still needs to see what the rest of the wet season brings, he added. The lab has recorded 137% of average precipitation, which includes rain and snow, that it usually sees by this time of year, but only 87% of the average total seasonal precipitation, Schwartz said. We really need the rest of the winter to stay moist and for the storm window to stay open to bring us even more rain and snow, he added. Because even though the short-term drought has kind of taken a hit with these most recent storms, we're going to need a lot more precipitation to talk about resolving the long-term drought overall. An unusually warm spell in the coming month could melt the snowpack too early. Last year, Schwartz noted, the wet season had a terrific December, but by late February, there had already been 2 to 3 weeks of snowpack melt. What weather arrives in the coming weeks will determine what the snowpack and the state's water supply will look like for the rest of the year. The proof is in the pudding, so to speak, when we hit around that April 1st time frame, and we see what's up there and what starts melting off, said Janine Jones, drought manager for the California Department of Water Resources.